Again, I would like to extend a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us today. Our next topic of discussion is making the tax regime less taxing, the way ahead. Our tax system can feel complex, burdensome, and sometimes downright frustrating, but it's also essential for funding public services and infrastructure. So the question becomes, how can we create a tax system that's fair, efficient, and less taxing on our wallets and our time? We have today's set of panelists who will help us discuss these issues and shed more light on them. I'll be quickly introducing all our panelists. First, we have Sharanya Lakshmikumaran. Sharanya, a partner at Lakshmikumaran and Sridharan, handles commercial and regulatory disputes over 15 years. She's an advocate on record and regularly appears before the Supreme Court and various courts. Next, we have Yogendra Aldak sir. Yogendra Aldak is a partner at Lakshmikumaran Sridharan and is a part of the firm's dispute practice. He holds expertise in handling diverse portfolio practice while specializing in indirect tax, commercial disputes, including arbitration, insolvency and bankruptcy, among others, and regulatory matters. Next, we have Pratap Singh sir. Pratap Singh is an IRS officer having rich experience in tax policy formulation and administration over the last 32 years. He has handled various important assignments in the government all over the country. He has written 2 research papers besides chairing some committees and authoring several reports. Several amendments in the Income Tax Act 1961 were carried out based on notes submitted by him. Next, we have Ramakrishnan sir. Ramakrishnan sir is a barrister and senior advocate based in New Delhi, practicing at the Supreme Court of India. He has a tenant in chambers at 33 Bedford Row and has rights of audience before the Royal Courts of Justice in England and Wales. He carries nearly 4 decades of expertise in taxation and commercial litigation. He has appeared before almost every tier of taxation authorities, from the Commissioner to the Supreme Court of India, at various stages of his career. We also have Ameya Kunte sir. Ameya Kunte is a seasoned tax expert, entrepreneur, and a CA known for restructuring, corporate tax, and M&A business advisory. He founded Global View Advisors LLP and is a board member for an automotive company and a member of the Chambers of Tax Consultants. Next, we have Sanjay Kumar sir. Sanjay Kumar is a tax partner with Deloitte India. He is also the public policy leader for Deloitte India and Deloitte Asia Pacific. Sanjay sir was earlier with the Indian Revenue Service for more than 28 years, holding many assignments in the tax department as well as in other ministries. His last assignment in the government was the Secretary of the Tax Administration Reform Commission. Lastly, we have Lalitendra Gulani. He is a partner at Anantham Legal. He deals in dispute resolution in corporate and commercial space, direct and indirect taxation, competition law, intellectual property, general corporate, and M&As. We have a whole set of panels here ranging from people from the administration as well as the law firms. I hope this turns out to be an enriching experience for you all. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. One small update, Sharanya is not on the panel. In her place, we have Yogendra, partner with Lakshmikumaran, who is joined on the panel. And we have let's give a round of applause to all the panelists here. I know we are somewhere eating into your lunchtime almost. And I think it's quite courageous of you to be listening to a less taxing times topic for next 35-40 minutes. I hope we won't disappoint you, and there is something to carry away as well. So when the organizers in the Legal Literature Festival created a space for tax, it sort of emphasizes the importance or the significance of the subject. Finally, tax is also a branch of law. Also, there are more numbers compared to other branches of law. Some of you who attended the inaugural session, we heard a very interesting connection between law and literature, and how sort of judges quote literature in their judgments, and even some of the quotes from Shakespeare. And even in tax, we we have very, very interesting judgments. In fact, the judge who delivered the Shanti Bhushan judgment on whether heart is a plant, and he quoted Ghalib, he delivered the inaugural address and sort of mentioned justice, law, and how it sort of impacts life as a whole. So this is a bit of a context. I'm sure through the panel we will hear perspectives of tax and literature from some of our panelists as well. We have an interesting construct. We have two professionals who, one of them has been an ex-IRS officer, now with a Big Four consulting firm. We have Sir who is still holding a charge at the Income Tax Department, and then we have three professionals who are from litigation side, advising on different branches of law and handling the litigation. So we'll, over next 35-40 minutes, try and touch upon the larger theme, making tax regime less taxing. I think that's a context. If you look at, since 1961, the income tax law is evolved, but particularly last 10 years, and this is there's nothing political about it, but generally there's a greater emphasis on the technology, ease of tax administration, use of data analytics, and therefore a more risk-based assessment. On the other hand, on GST, we have seen a robust adoption and implementation of technology. The bad side of it is that at times we have often unnecessary litigation which is stuck at the court. The other context is that we have a litigation sort of coming every day before the different forums. High Court, Supreme Court are clogged with several tax cases as well. And, so how do we sort of make it more easy, friendly is the context. And let me sort of begin the panel by requesting Pratap Singh sir, who's a commissioner, principal commissioner at the income tax, to sort of give a broader context on what are the one or two things in his experience that have eased out the tax administration in the last few years. Sir.
Thank you, Ameya ji, for setting the context. And good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, co-panelists. I would like to thank Oak Bridge, Mr. Vikesh Dhyani, Srish ji, Priyanka, Bhupendra, and all others for organizing this beautiful conclave, Vidhi Utsav, which is Sangam of law and literature. So coming to the issue as to how to make taxation less taxing. See, from government side, taxation is an area which is being looked into seriously by Honorable Prime Minister, by Honorable FM, by the CBDT. So I'll just lay out certain steps which the government has taken only very recently, in say last 1 or 2 months, or maybe in last 1 to 2 years. See, you must have seen this year's budget. The government took a very important step of writing off of the demands up to rupees 25,000. See, now this kind of step is going to sort of clear the books of the government and is going to give relief to about 1 crore taxpayers. So earlier what used to happen, that whatever refund, small refund is arising to the people, that used to get adjusted against the outstanding demand, which many cases could have been of infructuous nature. So government has taken this step. The second step government took about a year back was creating a vertical for demand facilitation and management, in which a commissioner rank officer was posted at CPC, Centralized Processing Center at Bangalore, and they are reaching out to the taxpayer as also to the tax officers, because some of the demand is outstanding on account of maybe non-credit of TDS, maybe taxes are paid but credit of the challan has not been given by the officer. So this kind of thing is happening over last 1 year, and to the best of my knowledge, demand of around, I think, 10,000 to 20,000 crore has been rectified. Now you must have heard about this pre-filled return, a very beautiful scheme of the government, pre-filled return. The moment you log on to the e-filing portal, your entire data of your income, let's say salary income or interest income or dividend income, so this automatically it appears there, pre-filled. So if you agree with that data and there is no business activity as such, you simply okay and submit the return. So you need not do anything. So this is a very progressive step. Another thing government has done is front loading of information. You know that government, the income tax department keeps collecting a lot of information under 360-degree profiling. Now, unless that information we share with the taxpayer may not know some of the issues, some of the items. So, a few years back, we used to share that information much later at the time of issue of notice, etc. Now, from last year, what we have done is, whatever information is in my possession, department's possession, I would share that information with the taxpayer before due date of filing of tax return, either through 26AS or AIS, which is quite robust now. So people can look into whatever the income is, small interest income or dividend income or any other income, or any property transaction, and that they take that into consideration while filing their tax return. Now this reduces tax litigation in a big way. Another thing the government has done is e-verification portal. Only some time back we had sent communications and SMS messages to a large number of people wherever there was variation in income, either some transaction was not reported, or there was some mismatch in tax return vis-a-vis the actual affairs of the SSC, information and possession of department. Now, this is a very good and progressive step and communicating to the person before issuance of any notice. So, on e-verification portal, you can submit your response, okay, this information is okay, or if you feel like that your return is to be revised, so that return can be revised. Another step, you must have heard about this updated return which came in the last budget. So what updated return says is that if because of any reason some income is left out, it happens, some maybe your saving bank interest or maybe small income here and there you could not disclose. I'm firm believer that most of the taxpayer, they like to show their income etc. in a correct way, in honest way. So I have a lot of faith, and this is the reason the tax collection is so high. So if some small amount is left here and there, some opportunity should be given to the person without really invoking any notice mechanism or anything. So filing updated return, the period given is up to 2 years. So in 1 year, you file the updated return, you pay additional tax to the extent of 25%. If it is delayed further, within 2 years, you can file some more additional tax and can file your return. You know, the assessment and appeal is another activity. So the government has made the entire process faceless now, and a person really need not go to the officer. Now, this saves a lot of time. So you can file your submission within the time available, anytime 24/7. Now you can file your return, you can file your grievance, you can see progress your cases. So this was possible because of the induction of technology in the department. Now because of technology, I really need not visit a taxpayer's place. I have got almost entire information with me, and with the help of technology, we can process crores of data. And out of that, we can generate a list of the people where there is some problem, there is a mismatch, there is a issue, or we suspect the taxes paid are much lesser. So these are all very, very progressive steps.
Right.
And government continues to take it. Now, just like few seconds more. From the very highest level, the government has appreciated the contribution made by the taxpayer, by the Honorable FM, by Honorable Prime Minister as well. And a lot of emphasis has been placed by the government on taxpayer services. Now there is a separate vertical for taxpayer services, which is headed by a very senior officer in the CBDT, by member CBDT. So that is the kind of thing, then Aikar Seva Kendras are there, I can like mention so many things, but this was some of the major steps taken by the government in last few years.
Right. Sanjay ji, you've been into the tax administration before, now advising large corporates on international tax. I remember you also were part of the group around the simplification of the tax code in the past. So, a lot of changes have happened on the administration. On the law, any one or two sort of highlights that you believe would be necessary to make the tax regime less taxing? And I'm asking you to wear a hat of in your current role as advisor. Any one or two thoughts?
So greetings from my side, and thanks Ameya for. So let me say that the way the government has done, as Pratap mentioned, it has brought a lot of technology, but this is still falling back. If you look at what is HMRC doing, what is USIRS doing, they are doing a lot more. When I was talking to a Japanese investor, a big company, they mentioned, and something very innovative and government can consider, that while bringing the investment, and at the moment Japanese are investing a lot in the country, and now we have EFTA, by which $100 billion are likely to come, and that's the proposal, that's the part of the EFTA agreement with EFTA. Question is, how do we organize that? We have advanced pricing regime, we had advanced ruling regime, but all these things have not given the investor the desired comfort. And today, the country is really looking for a lot more investment. So then what should the government do? And the point that you are trying to say, what are the laws? I'm trying to say how the laws can be organized. Laws are not given in a very natural manner. These are man-made laws. They can be altered to suit our needs, right? And at this point, I particularly feel the government should bring some kind of mechanism that when I bring the investment, I also know what the taxes are.
Sure.
I know, and that the same thing, when I get the approval for the investment to set up for example, a semiconductor plant, I do know what is the kind of taxes that I would have to pay, because the timelines and everything is available to the department when they do the projects. So what we need is a very, very bold reform. The present law of 1961, with the changes which has happened, I think it has outlived its utility in a large manner. It's not looking at the needs of the hour. So the tax laws need to be changed in some manner. Tax administration, definitely some changes are happening, but on the tax laws, and I bring a mention of the tax incentive. Government brought this some time back, that the tax incentives have to be, over a period of time moved out. But if you look at our neighboring countries or the European countries or any part of the countries, each of the countries have very high incentive. Incentives like, just to take an example, incentivizing R&D. Now, private sector investment in R&D is very, very small. India by itself is only spending 0.7% of the GDP. The private sector investment in R&D is even smaller. The government sector, whatever be the output and outcome, they continue to do a higher level. They compensate in a large manner. But that itself does not give us the desired impact, which is, we are still at 0.7. So obviously, at this point of time, to say that I will remove the R&D incentive will not be the right thing. Right. Let me give you one more example.
Sure.
And most of the countries, be it in the Asia-Pacific region be it in the Europe or be it in other parts of the country, world. They all have higher than 100% R&D incentive. Now, is that a justification? Because if you try and move this out, obviously you will lose out on whatever potential investment which is likely to come to India will not come to India. Because many of these companies will go and set up one in Malaysia or in Thailand or Vietnam. So that's the second thing. Talk about the infrastructure laws. At the moment, we don't have any specific law which can talk about giving some kind of investment, incentive to the infrastructure developer. We don't have any. What has Malaysia, Vietnam, and other countries done? They have brought the consolidated tax regime. They have brought tax laws by which the promoter, which could be the same, and he can have a multiple JVs. That, in India also you have JVs, because each state has a separate JV. And the promoter could just be the one, because he will be doing the project in various parts of the country. Give them incentives so that they do a consolidated tax return. What is the way it works? So that, suppose in some pocket, they are getting some kind of losses, they can compensate with where they are getting more profit. The advantage, more money in the hands of the infrastructure developer, and so the infrastructure development, which is largely at the moment is governed by the government finances, will bring the private sector investment. So that's what I'm trying to say. There is a little bit of, people think that it will be abused. Why would it be abused? You have wherewithals to go and look at the accounts and all kinds of things. How can it be abused? If you have that, bring all the anti-abuse provisions.
Right, right.
I mean, I can give you more,
Sure,
but
sure.
nonetheless, these are
No,
the
so
ones.
the common theme that we heard so far is the fact that there's a social and an economic objective that a country has to pursue. We have to therefore make law as easy as possible and administration and implementation again as easy. And Mr. Ramakrishnan, we heard about certainty, but the matters pending at the court reflect a different picture. And I'm just asking you to wear, a hat as looking at the judiciary and the legal system, particularly on the tax legal system. Are those sort of objectives being reflected in the litigation that you see? And it could be direct tax, it could be indirect tax.
I have a strong viewpoint on that. My theory is this litigation results from complexity in the tax litigation. Now, current taxation is a great revenue center for tax lawyers, nothing more than that. Now, and the reason why it is so, I think, is trying to achieve too many things through taxation. Take income tax, for instance. If you're taxing income alone, take your gross income, cut off expenses, the balance is your income, liable to tax. It's a simple legislation. But then you add incentivization. There I differ with the earlier speaker. If you have incentivization, ex post incentive, research incentive, and then you come to a stage when there is zero tax, actually a refund is due. And then what do? You have MAT, minimum alternative tax, to find out supplement revenues. So that's an entire complexity. My suggestion is tax income. If you want to incentivize, have another legislation where you give grants for exports, give grants for research. This is in direct taxes. Take indirect taxes, for instance. Simplest GST will be a single rate GST, no exemption. Now, you have various categorizations, and then you have litigation on which category does a particular thing fall. Second, you have exemptions. The moment you have an exemption, people think there's no tax there, and exemption is a good thing, particularly for necessities. But what they don't understand is it's not tax, it's economics. And the manufacturer, before that exempt product, has to somehow get his taxes from somewhere, so it indirectly increases the price. Short answer is, simplify the legislation, focus only on one. And then you're talking of social engineering. Now, if you're social engineering necessities, rich people have the benefit and the poor people have a benefit. Why do rich people need benefit of taxation on necessities? Instead, you give subsidies to the poor, direct subsidies for that. Now, the other question on litigation. This is a question which we ran a program at the National Judicial Academy for commissioner level officers in the taxes department. One of the questions posed by a judge there, he said to the officer saying, look, the assessee did not claim this particular benefit, but you know there's a Supreme Court judgment in favor of the assessee. He's not claimed it. Will you allow the benefit and then grant the assessee the refund which he has not asked for? That's the question. Many of them said no. The answer is, an assessing officer in that position is like a judge. If he gives a refund, which the assessee has not claimed, and he tells the assessee's representative, look, this is Supreme Court, you must give this refund, says the next day you will have more compliance. That's the fairness which will reduce litigation. But I don't think that will happen in my lifetime, so I'm a very wealthy tax lawyer.
Sanjay ji, you wanted to add a comment? Yeah.
I mean, great point on the tax laws should be made easy. But on the other point, which you mentioned about the turnover tax kind of thing, it has not worked anywhere. There was only one instance where Peru brought that. I think they reversed it within 7 days. Coming to the personal income tax, a flat tax rate, something like that, with Russia brought that long ago, and some of the communist countries brought that during the Russian, Soviet, USSR days. It ultimately became a scheduler tax. That means for each source of income, there is a separate tax rate, which is what we have. So it's very difficult in a country with aspiring, everybody having certain, requirement. It's very difficult to manage that. So
Right.
Most of the tax laws are this thing. So you become good, wealthy lawyer. We appreciate that. But that's the construct of the law across the different countries.
Right. But on this larger philosophy of simpler tax and no incentives, I do want to share a recent conversation with a promoter. They were discussing about new investment and new structure, and so what is a corporate tax rate? And earlier we know corporate tax rate was 35%, which has been brought down to now 25%. And when this was sort of discussed, you look at the immediate peers, Singapore and UK, the rate is 17 and 22. The arbitrage between 25 and 22 is then not much. Then I'm not thinking too much, too extravagant to sort of plan and make my structure complex. So I think, so maybe some mid-path around both your points can come. But we've seen the other way in GST, and Yogendra, let me come to you. GST by far is the most significant tax reform since independence that the country has seen. We've already been into a good 6, 7, 8 years into implementation. There are a lot of positives. I think the collection data itself is a big positive. Everything else then get addressed. But according to you, any one or two sort of points in the GST system which are necessary to make this regime less taxing?
Thank you. Since my seniors have already touched upon mostly direct taxes, and sir has touched on GST, I'll not take much time. I'll just indicate from the very background of how GST came into effect. So the erstwhile indirect tax regime which we had initially was Central Excise Act, Service Tax, and respective VAT and Entry Tax Act with respect to every states. The major difficulty a business used to have was with respect to availment of credit. So every business used to have or receive inputs or input services or capital good, but it was difficult for them to take credit of the same. So over a period of time, it was discussed, deliberated, and the government came up with something called GST in the present form which we see today. Now, one of the important aspect of GST is that it has avoided cascading effect. That is, if the business has taken certain inputs, paid tax on that, they'll be eligible to take credit of the same during their output liability. As sir indicated that for a tax law to become successful, it has to be simple. So according to me, the government has tried to simplify the process of taking credit by the businesses. No difficulty, there are certain conditions, there are certain documentation which the assessee needs to comply with to become eligible to take credit. But this is one important aspect which the government has considered and came up with GST. Now, it's not that every time a law is evolved or let's say enacted, it will be a perfect law. That's the reason, starting from 2016 till today, we are looking at so many amendments. Over a period of time, GST councils will have various meetings, they will discuss difficulties, they will try to come to a conclusion, and basis that amendments will take place. So over a period of time, we have seen so many amendments in the GST. Now, one of the thing which I think should be taken care by the government is constitution of GST appellate tribunal, which is not taking place for a longer period of time, and it is high time that we should have GST appellate tax tribunal. Why? Because every time the show cause notice is issued, the same is adjudicated by the adjudicating authority. After that, the first appellate authority, let's say, rejects the appeal of the assessee. What is the next recourse available to the assessee? Since the appeal should lie to the tribunal and there is no tribunal available, the assessee have no other option but to approach the High Court. For a tax lawyer, it is very good because as and when the order is passed by the appellate authority, we say that if the department is pressurizing for recovery, we advise them to go to the High Court by filing writ. So as a lawyer, it's good for us, but considering from the perspective of an assessee, it is not good. So I think this is the major aspect which the government should consider. In fact, there are discussions which are taking place amongst the government, within the government, and they are contemplating to come up with the constitution of GST appellate tribunal. So I think that is the major concern.
Right, thank you. So we heard again 2 points. One is a administrative mechanism to sort of resolve the disputes and also the rate arbitrage and therefore again leading to the disputes. Lalitendra, you sort of look at pan-India GST administration, and one more point which I have seen is the way the administration of GST happens by the legacy central officers versus legacy state officers who are now looking at GST. Any 1 or 2 key takeaways from your interactions, particularly the difference between how central officers look at it versus state officers, and can something be improved over there?
Definitely. But before coming to that point, I would, since we have so many dignitaries over here, I have a few questions which I would like to ask.
No, you don't get a privilege to ask question. That is
then I would like to share some comments.
Sure.
As an inquisitive student of law. Now, we imagined a tax regime, GST, which would have, which would be implemented, a single tax which would be implemented by the center as well as states. Earlier, when there were states, and the states were, there was a body called Empowered Committee of State Finance Ministers, but that body could not implement VAT properly because every state was entitled to implement different set of VAT rates, and eventually there was rate arbitrages pursuant to which GST was brought into picture. Now, GST law as it was envisaged involved constitutional amendments. Those constitutional amendments also involved introduction of the body of the GST Council. Now, this GST Council is a body which is responsible for framing the policy on which tax laws, tax statutes are based. Essentially, whenever we envisage, whenever we think of a body like GST Council, we always foresee that it would be a body whose decisions would be binding upon the parliament, whose decisions would be binding upon the states. Otherwise, we would be in the same situation as we were in the VAT regime. But recently, if we see the statute, if we go through the exact provision, Article 279A of the Constitution, it says recommendations of the GST Council. The Supreme Court in the judgment of Mohit Minerals has very clearly observed that these are only recommendations. These do not bind the Parliament and the state legislature. So today we have a political majority in terms of at the state level also and the central level also. God's grace that we can have a unified regime implemented at the state level and also at the central level. But God forbid, we of course can have a situation wherein at the state level there is a separate party and which is totally against that which is at center. In that scenario, what binds all of these states and center to stick to a unified regime of tax laws? We can still have the same flaws that were there under the VAT regime, and they can percolate into the GST regime. So this is, I believe, one of the major structural deficiencies that we see there in the GST laws. Secondly, I believe a lot of litigation, we were talking about incentives, we were talking about simplified regime. I believe there's a certain apprehension when the government is introducing in these incentives, which is leading to a lot of litigation, unnecessary litigation. Many a times these incentives are brought into a picture with the approach that the taxpayers will inevitably end up abusing those, which is normally not the case. Many a times these are honest taxpayers who have honest, very legitimate interpretations of law. After this SEZ scheme, EOU scheme was disincentivized, at the end of the day, there was a scheme called Private Bonded Warehouse Manufacturing MOVAS scheme that was brought into picture, which was renewed. And many of the people who were responsible, who were in the business of installing solar power panels, solar power projects, they were also trying to avail the benefits under this particular scheme. There were four or five taxpayers who had availed the benefit under the scheme. But interestingly, we had a scenario wherein the government subsequently issued a retrospective circular wherein they said that we do not intend to provide these benefits to them, and which led to unnecessary litigation which has traveled to the High Court. Coming to the point that you had raised, briefly talking about it, the state tax authorities, of course, have approached the issue in a very litigative manner. As what Yogendra also pointed out, the moment an order is passed, after 10-15 days, we see that state tax authorities initiate recovery proceedings without even complying with the limitation period of 3 months, which is specified in Section 78. And unnecessarily, all of these taxpayers have to approach High Court to obtain a writ decree stating that this demand has to be set aside, this demand be at least stayed, since the taxpayers in all of these cases are already paid the pre-deposit, which results in automatic stay. So, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Pratap Singh sir, you spoke about all the initiatives, and I think the core of all of these initiatives is that it is empowered by the digitization that the government has done and the administration has done. And first of all, hats off to that. I mean, 90% plus taxpayers today receive the refund within 1 month's time, which is a real data, and that's, I think, is a big achievement. At the same time, the tax evasion is a real problem in a country like India. You still have only 4% of our population paying tax, I think you will have more Mercedes owners in Delhi than that number of high taxpayers. Using the digital approach or the technology, are there any one or two examples that you could share where, as a tax administration, you've been able to effectively deploy technology to identify tax evasion?
A very good question and a very relevant question. You see, with the help of technology, our AI and ML, we can really detect as to who are the people who had substantial transaction, having element of income, but were not filing tax return. So that is easy. And we have been doing that now for last 3 to 4 years. And all these processes now, 148AB and 148AD, those kind of things, for the earlier years. You must be seeing 15, 16, 16, 17, some of the notices are going to the people, so that is happening. Another category is that you have particular transaction, but you somehow feel that it is not taxable. It is exempted from tax. Those kind of categories also we have been able to track reasonably with the help of technology in non-intrusive way. And it has been very successful in sending across the message, because sometime back even I got a message, SMS and a mail, okay, please have a look at your tax return and whether some income has escaped assessment or something like that. So I wasn't sure, so I talked to my chartered accountant, is there so? Can you just go through the details? What exactly, is there anything left out? No, sir. So what for the message is, it was in terms of dividend income. So then I asked him, but we have already shown the dividend income, some small amount, I think 35,000. Okay, sir, we have already shown it, but somehow computer must have mentioned this thing, because in earlier year we did not have dividend income. So system is good enough for the most of the cases. Now, where is the problem? And I'll not say it is tax evasion. I'll say it is tax gap. We are getting a lot of taxes, so the potential taxes and actual tax collection gap. So the issues are 2, 3. So one issue is aggressive tax planning. Some people, despite knowing that this particular item or transaction is taxable and should be disclosed, they wish to take chances. There is a particular category, so they are brave warrior people, so they are fighters, the government has to fight with them. Now, there is a category, innocent non-compliers, innocently, so they don't intend to so, but somehow it left out. So to deal with them, we need to be very, very soft, very nice, supportive, to bring them, no, sir, don't worry, we'll take care of it. You need to revise your return or file, we make this addition, rest of the things we'll take care. So those kind of things, but 2, 3 points I would like to mention. The kind of tax collections we have seen in last 2 to 3 years, this is phenomenal. And a major reason for that is technology, because we have been able to tap those transactions. See, the current year, our budget provisions, budgeted revenue was 18,23,000 crore. Now, it has been revised to 19,45,000 crore. So, 1945 is actual collection of 16.62 crore in the last financial year. There is a growth close to 19-20%. This is phenomenal. So 19-20% this year gone by 22-23, our growth was close to 19%, and year before it was close to 50%, 49.54%. Of course, in the year 21-22, it was on account of base effect also. So phenomenal kind of tax collection, and the number of taxpayer is somewhere around 8.22 crore returns have already been filed. And if we add to that the people in whose case TDS is made, they too are taxpayers. So in somebody's case, if a tax is being deducted, he is also paying taxes indirectly. So the number comes close to 10 crores. So there is a fairly large number. Now the problem is that in higher income bracket, we don't have sufficient number of people.
Right.
So our latest data is for last year, this financial year I don't have data. Above 1 crore income, we have got around 2,62,000.
3 lakh.
Less than 3 lakh.
That
So
is
that
what
is
I
the kind of
mentioned.
figure.
You have more
So
cars.
that number should go up. So I was talking to my friends in Systems Directorate who control about data and all these things. Okay, what should we do about it? So very innovative thing he suggested. Let's say there is some building in Mumbai or Delhi, particular apartment complex where apartment costs close to 100 crore or maybe 80 crore. We can actually pinpoint with the help of technology that how many taxpayers from that building, that address, and what is the kind of returns they are filing. So due course, the rich people, there would be a bit of eye from the department side. But for the smaller taxpayer, we need to be like very, very supportive. So you must have seen these ideas like DRC, dispute resolution committees and all that. So a lot of this thing is smaller, like tax disputes, it can be settled in that way, like through DRCs. And one more point, as Sanjay sir had mentioned, about the investment, etc., foreign companies coming and making investment in the country and taxation issues relating to that. I agree with him that we need to do little more on that front. And little more in the sense our speed need to get better. So we have got mechanism in place in terms of we have got APA, Advanced Pricing Agreement and Directorate relating to that, as also BAR, Board of Advanced Ruling.
Yeah.
So both are very good, noble concept. But it is seen that it is taking a little longer period, maybe a little more complexities involved. Maybe more of such offices are to be reopened all over country. In due course, I think we would be in a position to address these things. And in this particular issue, we are together. It is not that taxpayers are in different block and tax professionals are in different block and tax officers are in different block. We are together. So we need to sit down together, share each other's problem, each other's concern, and find bankable solutions, which is good for the department, good for the taxpayer, good for the country, good for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ramakrishnan, the digital sort of moves into the litigation as well. And on the tax administration side, we've seen assessments happening in a faceless manner. The jury is out on whether the appellate tribunal, income tax appellate tribunal, should it move to faceless and digital. High Court, Supreme Court, of course, is not happening, but we did see during the COVID time that litigation can take place online too. And this is, I think, one of the important aspects of making the regime less taxing, how quickly and easily you can address the appeal and the litigation. Any thoughts, both from a convenience as well as wearing the legal hat on whether it is valid or not? I mean, can the hearing happen in a faceless way in that sense?
Faceless, no. But online, yes. There's a distinction between faceless and online. Litigation, particularly at the tier of appeal, must be addressed face to face. Otherwise, you will not have that exchange of ideas and exchange of conflicts, yes. But we are running out of time.
Right. Yeah, just one more sort of point. A lot of litigation that is happening that you see eventually come out at the court level, sir. One is, of course, at times taxpayers try to push the limits on the law than its intention. The second, in the last few years particularly, is there a reflection of a morality and the society when the tax administration looks at a particular issue or a transaction and then tries to recover the tax? Is that Is that philosophically a point that you observe?
When you talk of morality, I think morality will have effect if there is consistency. You can't have morality one day and reversal of morality the other day. If there's consistency over a longer period of time, then yes, what you say would happen.
Right. Sanjay ji, your reflection on tax morality and the faceless versus digital litigation approach?
You know, he's right that the morality should be in a secular manner should start moving up. Then only more trust will be there between the taxpayer and the tax department. So it's very important. As far as the digital administration is concerned, I mean, I'm attaching everything on that. That's a very good step that the government has taken, and it's the need of the hour. It does reduce the cost of travel,
Sure.
papers, and all those things, and the cost of compliance improves, so that the taxpayer benefits overall. So
Right.
I would say that this should continue and move to the next level, so that it becomes far more. It should give far more confidence to both sides that it is the best way to move.
Right. Yogendra, you wanted to add on the digitization? Yes. And Lalitendra, your thoughts as well on the faceless part after Yogendra.
So I am in support of digitization as far as tax administration or dispute resolution is concerned. One of the advantage which I have noticed, especially after GST came into effect, is that everything has become digital now. So an assessee will have its portal, its login ID, where he'll be able to see what all returns he has filed or he is supposed to file. Let's say a show cause notice is issued, he'll be able to see that from the portal itself, and he can file reply on the portal. If the same is if the hearing notice is given by the authority, hearing notice will also be uploaded on the portal itself. So starting from the filing of return till adjudication of demand, everything is taking place in the portal itself, so that the assessee is aware of everything, what is going on. It's not that he has filed his reply and he is not aware as and when the hearing will be fixed, because he'll get to know about the hearing notice only when he receives the notice. But now, after digitization, it has happened that the moment hearing notice is uploaded on the portal, he'll be able to see. So, and there are so many other aspects which has led to betterment of the tax regime. For example, the transitional credit. When the GST came into effect, the government tried to smoothen the process of transitioning erstwhile credit to GST regime. And there are so many examples to it. So I won't take much time, but I am in support of digitization, be it the tax administration or dispute resolution.
Yeah.
Brief comment, yes.
I believe nobody can be against the idea of introducing technology. It only makes things simpler and better for administration. But I just have 2 points to add. First is that we live in a country which is definitely younger, so there is a greater receptivity towards technology in comparison to even US or Canada. But we still have people who are not so adept at interpreting all of these forms. So there are bound to be errors at the part of taxpayers. I just have a request for the tax department to be a little considerate towards those taxpayers. Even if, let's suppose, if I'm I'm trying to avail the transitional credit. Let's suppose there is I enter the number under a wrong heading. That shouldn't result in blocking my entitlement to the ITC itself. My substantive right to the ITC should not be challenged only on the basis of these procedural irregularities, because procedural defects are at both the ends. If we have failed, there have been failures at the departments and the government's end also. So
Sure.
I'm just saying that it should be dealt equal-handedly.
Sure, sure. That brings us to the last few minutes of this panel. Unfortunately, we don't have time to take the questions, but I'm going to ask a last question, which is same to all the panelists. And Vikesh and Shrish have named this as a Vidhi Utsav, and I started the session with tax and literature. So my question to all the panelists and Mr. Ramakrishnan could go first. What is it that you read recently? Could be tax, could be anything else, which has given some thought to your tax or legal argument. Anything that you read in the literature, in the fiction, which you sort of read and you sort of carried it in your court practice or in your interpretation or an argument. You and then we'll go with the other panelists too.
No, I came across a phrase about writing in particular, which I've carried on to everything else. And that goes like this, hard writing leads to easy reading. Easy writing leads to hard reading. I think that goes for writing tax law, writing tax judgment, writing tax appeals, everything.
Sanjay ji, Pratap Singh ji, anything that you picked up?
I haven't picked up anything, but one thing which came to my knowledge was something which on the mineral taxation, and is still being debated. But I'm waiting to see how the entire aspect develops, because this is going to be a big one.
Sure.
Devolution between the state and the center. So it will be of keen interest to me, coming from the literature side.
Right, Singh Saab,
Some time back I read one very interesting thing. See, we feel that tax department collects taxes or the government collects taxes. Actually, taxes legitimately belong to the citizen of a country, to the people of a country. This is very, very important. So the right on taxes is not of the government. Right on taxes of the people, citizen. The people like who belongs to that country. And if somebody is not paying taxes properly, somehow, somewhere he is not doing justice with his fellow citizens and fellow people with the country.
right. Lalitendra, anything that you read recently?
Instead of reading, I think I'll like to quote an example from from a case that I was recently arguing before the Madras High Court, wherein I used a quote from the Spider-Man movie, that with great power comes great responsibility. It was in respect of holding the tax authorities accountable for the wordings that they write in their order. Whenever they're making a remark, it cannot be an unsubstantiated remark. So in our case, there was a writing that you have adjusted your tax advances towards the tax that you've paid towards other tax liabilities. So it cannot be considered to be a pre-deposit. And there was no basis for that finding. So I had used that. And I think it is something which conveys a very important idea.
So, from my experience, it's not that I have read anything in recent past, but from my experience, what I generally advise my client is that the tax legislation is going to be there. Either you challenge it to the extent that it becomes ultra vires, or you comply with that. So it is better to keep all the compliances intact so that there is no problem in future, or at least the problem in future is lesser. That is the advice that I try to give to the client.
But like one thing I wanted to say, जो उन्होंने raise किया ना, in income tax department, there is a mechanism to address such issues. If some officer has taken a stand or position which is not proper, there is a particular concept called high-pitched committees. So high-pitched assessment committee, they look into the decision-making process made by the officer, and by that committee, some of the officers have been penalized. So I don't know on GST side what is happening, but income tax side, there is a mechanism, and maybe something of similar nature may follow in GST side. But मेरा ये कि GST वाले को भी एक बुला लेते ना आज, GST commissioner or somebody अच्छा रहता, तो income tax से लोग हैं, one officer could have come from GST side also to give his side of things, the government perspective.
Right.
Thank you.
With those comments, we'll end the panel. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for sharing your thoughts. We had limited time and there's lots to talk, but thank you for walking the tightrope. Please give a big hand to all the panelists. Thank you so much. Can we take a couple of questions? Yes, yes, sir. You can speak up, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, sir. My name is Suresh. I attended a conference in which an officer from the GST department said that the GST rate is revenue neutral for a business because the entire tax is paid by the customer. However, this is not the case because the differential tax GST rate and road tax on electric vehicle and petrol vehicle influences the purchasing decisions. Also, the recent amendment to Income Tax Act, which states that payment to MSMEs which is delayed beyond 45 days cannot be claimed as expense, contradicts the Indian accounting standards which mandates accrual basis of accounting. Currently, IRS officers can have any bachelor's degree. So do you think minimum qualifications such as BCom or BBA or professional experience such as chartered accountancy or taxation law should be prescribed for IRS officers so that they have basic understanding of how businesses run?
Right. Thank you, sir. Maybe we can take 2 points from this question. Sanjay ji, the first point, it's a larger point around the bureaucracy being sort of generalist, and then you go into the department and learn the ways. Any reflections on that? And second question, sir, maybe I can request you to address, is GST really neutral in that sense? Yeah, maybe you can take. Yes, Sanjay ji.
Okay. So
Brief comments, please.
So coming to the first point about generalist being or people from all kinds of subjects coming to the tax department, and that's only at the time of writing the exam. But then all the IRS officers, be it from the custom side, central GST side, or from the tax side, undergo 2 years of very rigorous accounting, law, and the tax law, the tax practices. Very rigorous, and I must tell you, they are at the MCOM level. All the courses are at the MCOM level. Just to give you another point, HMRC is considered one of the leading tax administrations. They also follow the same system, and I think they have done quite well. Income Tax Department and the GST also have done well. What it requires is training and more training, because new things come, more understanding of the business. They have a good knowledge of law and regulations, but it's the business part which also if it is, comes to them very often, they will become far better. And I must pat on the back of all the IRS officers that some of the points which world has not thought of as clearly, be it on the transfer pricing I am particularly talking about, also on the international taxation, the tax department here has done that. And this goes to the credit of this for bringing some of the issues to the fore, and now this being debated in the Supreme Court. So I would not really talk about it, but yes, I will talk about the training and retraining.
Recipient being entitled to full input tax credit and hence GST being a revenue neutral tax, it's a very beautiful argument to theoretically to put forth, but essentially no recipient is ever entitled to full input tax credit. There will always be some reversals or the other. So of course, if there is a difference in tax rate that has been adopted by the vendor, then it would eventually result into proper litigation, and the revenue is fairly right in doing so. I don't feel I'm a very, very vociferous voice for the taxpayers, but again, always normally appearing against all the tax department, but I think they have a claim, tax department.
Sure.
To answer his question shortly, it is not revenue neutral. It tries to be revenue neutral, like we are trying to go there, but not.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you. A big hand to the panelists, please.
A heartfelt thank you to all our legal panel for an unwavering commitment to advancing legal discourse, and I think those were really helpful insights for all our audience. I'll request Dhyani sir to present all our panelists with the mementos. These mementos are a small token of appreciation from our side. I request it to present it to Sanjay Kumar, sir. Pratap Singh, sir. And Ramakrishnan, sir. Ameya sir, you've already received your memento, and Yogendra sir and Lalitendra sir, actually there was some technical issue. We couldn't get your mementos prepared timely. We'll surely send it to you after the event.